which will enjoy the largest additional demand thanks to Tokyo 2020. So you guys had inbound tourism, construction, yes, please. Food and entertainment.
Transportation.
Transportation. You got them all. So, well, I saw a variety of projections by institutions like BOJ, Bank of Japan, Mitsubishi Research, and Japan Research, and this is the kind of summary of those projections made around 2 years ago. And they are saying basically we'll have additional revenue of, or additional GDP of 11 to 21 trillion yen for over the 7-year period. So it is about 0.3 to 0.6% of the annual GDP of Japan. Well, it's significant, but it's not really gigantic. And when I look at those numbers, I thought about several questions. Question number one, don't we really need to accelerate innovations and create new industries? If you look at them, those are really the usual suspects, not including anything really new to Japan. And question number two, a large majority of the new demand comes from urban development, more than half. And those urban development projects, when we count them, it's more than 5 really large-scale projects across all over Tokyo. But do we really need so many new buildings or new residential properties, especially when we expect that the population of Tokyo will peak out around 2020? And most of those projects will be completed between now or between 2018 and 2025. So what about after that? Are we going to have a good economy? And finally, are those real estate urban development projects really differentiated to each other so that Tokyo will become a more attractive and competitive city compared with other major cities like New York, London, or Paris? And when you see ongoing urban development projects in many places like Shibuya, Shinagawa, Shinjuku, Shibaura, Toranomon, etc. Actually, many of those look like each other. And when I talk to property developers who are in charge of those respective urban development projects, they are thinking similarly to each other. So that was the major concerns I had when I started looking at those numbers as well as details of each individual project. At one of the G1 sessions in 2014, I had a chance to have a small table discussion with some of those people on the future of Tokyo. And after the table discussion ended, I decided to set up a regular team by inviting some of them. And now it's got to increase to a 12-person team, including 2 architects and urban planners, several designers, 1 contemporary artist, 1 ex-Olympian athlete, 1 food service entrepreneur, and a lawyer, and media expert, and myself. So it's really a pro bono private sector team who really has or share the passion about the future of Japan and have a similar concern as I stated. So let me introduce some of the key concepts we developed and we share with many stakeholders about the future of Tokyo. In terms of scope of our NEXTOKYO project, we really like to add a new dimension to the existing mind frame by property developers. That is basically building new buildings and infrastructure. But it is becoming more important to think about what kind of lifestyles we're going to develop, what kind of culture we will develop, or even what new industries will attract or develop. And to make them happen, what kind of changes we need to make to the social systems or regulations. In terms of approach of developing the city, like Tokyo, we really need to have new mindset with bottom-up creativity and substantial use of conversion or renovation, as opposed to just building new something. And in terms of targets we think about when we build the city, property developers tend to think about today's residents and today's industries because they really need to calculate the economics of the new projects. But building a city is about 30 to 50-year effort. So we really need to think about the future generations and future industries. So we decided to add those elements or aspects when we think about the future of this city. Let's take a while and see how Tokyo is rated in today's competition. This is according to Mori Memorial Foundation Global Power City Index. They conduct every year. And Tokyo is rated, you'll guess, number 3. It used to be number 4, now number 3, after London and New York. And this is the composite of respective dimensions. So Tokyo is fairly rated highly in terms of the size of the economy and the magnitude of R&D investment. But Tokyo is rated poorly in terms of livability and environment. Oops. There is another interesting ranking by a British lifestyle magazine called Monocle. Monocle is highest regarded lifestyle magazine, and believe it or not, they rate Tokyo as number 1. Actually, not only for 2017, they rated number 1 2015, 2016, and 2017. And what are the rationale? You see their statements here. It's saying basically Tokyo has a mixture of something really old and new, the mixture of high-tech, modern efficiency, and traditional culture. And that strikes a very interesting feature or interesting characteristic for some of the people, especially with the heavy culture-minded, like Monocle. Talking about the image of Tokyo compared with London and New York. London number 1 in Mori's ranking and New York number 2. We looked at several key characteristics highlighted here. One characteristic for Tokyo is the image about technology and being modern. And the second one is culture, sushi, and food. So we decided to use those existing image as Tokyo's asset when we build the overall vision for the city. This is kind of the conclusion in terms of 3 pillars we developed as the key concepts for Tokyo. Number 1, creative city. Simply put, we like to make Tokyo as the most attractive creative city in the world, with lots of interesting creative industry clusters and many attractive towns across Tokyo with unique edges. And we also need to develop nighttime culture and economy, which this city has been lagged compared with other cities. Pillar number 2 is Tech City. By leveraging the image of technology and modern the global citizens have about Tokyo, we really like to attract many cutting-edge technology-intensive industries. And also, we like to use the city of Tokyo as a showcase of some type of technologies, especially IoT solutions. Because we'll have a lot of business tourists as well as leisure tourists toward 2020. And this is one of the best opportunity the city has to demonstrate something which we can be proud of. So why not use that rare occasion to really promote some of the Tokyo's industries. And the third pillar we call Fitness City. This is more about filling the gap, but Tokyo really needs to develop a healthier lifestyle, especially when we have aging society, and we have more diversity in the city. So it is about city with the healthier lifestyle, and in particular, we like to develop the waterfront zones, which we have neglected to do something with. And also, we like to have more attractive green zones within the city. So let's look at some image sketches or idea flashes around those 3 pillars. The third one, Fitness City. I spoke about the waterfront zone development. We need to have at least several scenes like this. When you go to cities like New York, London, or Singapore, you'll have some waterfront zones which are well developed and attract citizens as well as tourists and demonstrate a nice lifestyle. We lack that. So to get there, we are proposing a set of recommendations like developing running or cycling courses along the Bay Area, developing or making an investment to upgrade piers and yacht harbors, especially for luxury property owners or tourists. Further developing water traffic system, and using some part of the ocean as a place for entertainment. Talking about water traffic systems, actually Tokyo already has 3 different kinds of water traffic systems like this. The top left is for tourists, and this ship has been designed by Reiji Matsumoto, famous animation creator. Top right is limousine boat for luxury tourists. And the one in the bottom, it's serviced by a new startup called Tokyo Water Taxi. And they have a plan to develop a fleet of 60 small water taxis like this. And you are able to make a reservation on your application, smartphone application, and pick up one of those taxis at one of the 16 piers and drop off at a different pier. So it's coming. I spoke about entertainment on the ocean. There are some interesting examples in other countries. One on your left is called Noor Beach Club in one of the islands in Croatia. This Park Island is becoming a new contender for nightlife after Ibiza. And one on your right is offshore resort, a kind of small island called Sada Club with swimming pool, restaurants, and bars. At night, they'll play DJs, and lots of party people visit there. We are working on a real project with Dutch friend to develop something interesting on the ocean toward 2020. And they have a plan to develop something called Holland House, which is one facility to host various parties during the period of Olympics and Paralympics Games, sponsored by Heineken. And my team is helping that Dutch team to make it happen by talking to the port authority as well as the municipal government. Another aspect about a healthier lifestyle, another proposal we made to a former governor of Tokyo. This is basically a conversion of the existing Tokyo highway. Tokyo metropolitan government has a plan to tear them down and bury them underneath. Why not leave some part of it for a different use, like this? So if we can have, let's say, one leg between Shinjuku and a royal palace, it's going to be fantastic lane with a great view, lots of greens, and some significant length. The second pillar was about creative city, and we really like to leverage what each town already has. So instead of building something new, we like to build several very unique towns with a lot of cultural interesting stuff. And for example, Harajuku and Shibuya are already famous for fashion and music and potentially nightclubs. Shinjuku for night entertainment, Ikebukuro for performing arts, Ginza for traditional arts, and Akihabara for otaku culture, something like that. So why not build upon those existing edges? For example, Shibuya is already becoming a new holy site for Halloween lovers. One of the proposals for Shibuya is renovating a part of the love hotels. Oh, sorry. Censored. You are from many different countries, so you may know that on YouTube, there are lots of short videos talking about love hotels somewhere in Japan and what interesting experience it is. Yeah, it can be interesting, but we really need to make them accessible to regular inbound tourists. And our proposal is basically convert them into regular hotel with interesting or edgy artistic features. So we invite many young creators, designers, and architects to convert each room into something like his or her own piece, art piece, and convert them into a regular hotel so that anybody can have access. There is already a few cases which have been made happen. This one particular one is called a B&A Hotel Koenji. So this is actually from Koenji, not Shibuya. But as you know, Shibuya has more than probably 30 or 40 small love hotels, and some of them will disappear sooner or later. So why not leverage the very interesting exterior and interior design already existing? We started talking about this about 3 years ago, and the cabinet picked up somehow, and this is the news from 2 years ago. It's saying basically love hotels targeted for conversion to meet regular demand. Shibuya is also a town for night culture, and it has one of the greatest concentration of nightclubs already. But still, it's not comparable to cities like New York or London. So we are proposing to the town mayor about converting Shibuya into a nighttime culture special economic zone. And this is what we're gonna try to do. Issuing special licenses to many nightclubs which are outside of the legal zones, which are specified by municipal laws. We'll use streets for a site for nighttime culture or nighttime sport events. Probably we'll plan some outdoor projection mapping shows, and we'll use museums during the nighttime as well for other purposes. We also like to use the open spaces, public spaces, in a more creative manner. This is already existing example, which you can find in Omotesando. Maybe some of them have been there. But especially towns like Shibuya, Harajuku, Shinjuku, we like to have more of those really enjoyable sites, which combines a variety of food services as well as entertainment, or maybe some art exhibition. Let's go to Akiba. If you are an otaku culture lover, probably you have tried them already. Akiba Card is an existing service. You can do lots of cosplays, not only Mario, but also anything you dream of, like Superman or Spider-Man, whatever. The young lady on your left, her name is Kyun-kun, and she calls herself as a robotic fashion creator. What does it mean? It's basically a fashion designers using robotics technologies. So she designs and wears robots and walk on the street, period. Akiba produces or creates something really weird, like her. And that's the beauty of this town. Well, why not add to the existing weird characteristic of the town? For example, we are proposing to develop homestay services specifically for Akiba like this. If you can read kanji, one on your left is called itabeya, itai heya. And well, ita, if you put ita in front of some word, that means weird. So probably this room may have variety of manga collection. And if you are a manga lover, once you get in, you can never get out. That's the kind of service. Well, not only about rooms and homestays, maybe we should try to turn the whole city or whole town into a game field using AR and VR technologies. And by combining with this kind of inbound attractions, we also invite lots of startups with focus on AR and VR technologies. So we are talking with 2 property developers who have a significant stake in Akiba to make it happen. Let's move on to Ikebukuro. Well, Ikebukuro has been called as a town for Fujoshi. Fujoshi in kanji, it's really rotten girls, rotten women. In a more friendly manner, it means basically otaku lover women. And interestingly enough, the mayor of Toshimaku, who owns Ikebukuro, is proud about being a town for Fujoshi. But not only that, probably we should try to convert or evolve Ikebukuro into a town where all kinds of women's dreams come true. not only dreams of Fujoshi. That's our proposal. And we made this proposal to the mayor as well. So simply put, it is women's creative and innovation village with shared spaces, shared lab, shared studios and co-working spaces and shared houses with accelerators, incubators focused on female entrepreneurs and creators. If you have been in Tokyo for a few years, you should have seen lots of news about the Tsukiji fish market. And we made this proposal about 2 years ago to a former Tokyo Metropolitan Governor. And basically we said to him that Tsukiji has such a great legacy, two legacies really. One is the brand name itself. Everybody knows that Tsukiji is the fish market in Japan. And second legacy is the beautiful building with the red roof you see in the picture. So our recommendation was to leverage those two legacies when we convert Tsukiji fish market into something new. And one of the key recommendations we made is to convert that particular building with the red roof into a really high quality food hall with a variety of Japanese as well as other kinds of culinary experience. And also to develop football and rugby stadium like this. And we'll develop hotels and residential property like this using the two sides of the stadium. And the other two sides are open to Tokyo Bay. And we can have luxury inbound tourists who have stays here and watch the soccer games or enjoy the concerts. And well, this place also has the food hall, so it has attractions for office workers nearby. So our aim is really about turning this place into the most attractive destinations for tourists as well as city workers in the area. Oh, by the way, I advise the Japanese Football League, J-League. So I have had the discussions with them as well. They really have high aspiration to develop at least one stadium within the center of the city so that regular lighter fans can get together to see the games. Right now, in the Japanese soccer environment, most of the stadiums are far away from the center of the city. Therefore, if you are a hardcore fan, you go to a stadium of your choice, maybe 15 times a year. But if you are a casual fan, you just watch the TV, period. And that's not good for the soccer industry. Well, talking about creative city, we also need to have serious effort to upgrade the intellectual aspect of the creative industries this city has, or Japan has. And Japan has a lot of great specialized universities or colleges producing creators, but not business producers. And those creators, in most cases, can only speak Japanese. Therefore, when they like to go abroad, they have a serious challenge. And the creative industries here don't really have many very capable international business producer type. So we need to attract lots of business producers from abroad and work with the Japanese industry so that they can export what they have, or they can develop suitable products or services in targeted overseas markets. So our aim was to start from high-level institution for design and culinary food. For the former, the design, we had the small win about a year ago. Now, RCA, Royal College of Art, has a small lab jointly with the University of Tokyo in Komaba. So it's called RCA IIS Tokyo Design Lab. And they also have, the combination also has London Design Lab as well. So it's two design labs, which two universities actually exchange faculty members and students and have international exposure and work on the different kinds of projects. So at Todai, basically designers coming from London are working with the researchers of the University of Tokyo with some really cool technologies. And those designers are working on projects to repackage those interesting technologies into something visible for business people. So you'll see probably a series of interesting projects coming out of this lab this year and next. The third pillar was Tech City. This is more about business. But when you think about the kind of solutions you can install or you can develop within the city, there are a lot. So just to name a few, it can be personal health, sport entertainment, and smart mobility, intelligent security, or some kind of advanced marketing. Let's take several examples of that. Oh, by the way, we also need to significantly upgrade the way to help navigate foreign inbound tourists for the city or for the entire country. So we are proposing to develop a set of user-friendly smartphone-based applications, which can include features about transportation, restaurant search and bookings, maybe some kind of translation combined with the Google Translate, and emergency information, particular for specific towns. So IoT solutions, I mentioned earlier, that can be partner health. And these two companies are also from Japan. The first one is called Cyberdyne, one of the most successful mega ventures out of Tsukuba University. And it is really robot suits for lower limb disabilities. They launched the products already in Europe and Japan, and I believe their products are under FDA review. One in the bottom is called Cyborg. This company, this startup, was established one of the NEXTOKYO members. He's a former Olympian athlete, and his aim is developing the cutting edge artificial legs like this, and also training Paralympians to win the games. The 2020 is a year for sport entertainment, obviously. So we really need to upgrade the customer experience you could have in the stadium or even at home. When you think about how to look at a soccer game, this could be like this. You go to a stadium, you open an application on your smartphone, you pick the second screen of your choice. It can be a particular player's view or judge's view or bird's view or sometimes statistics. And when there was a goal, you can see the replay from the angle you like. So this is how probably the soccer game will be viewed in a few years. If you are a fan of a different sport, please develop the best way to enjoy a particular sport, because each sport should have a different way of optimal viewing experience, and we really need great wealth of ideas to make it happen. Talking about mobility, obviously the self-driving cars will be the ultimate one. To get there, the city already has a service called Docomo Bike Share by NTT Docomo. The city needs to develop a car share service where a customer can drop off a car at a different place. The existing car share service, you pick up a car and you have to drop at the same place. That is not convenient. So, as you know, car service player like Car2Go in Europe has that kind of service, and we really need to equip the city with that kind of service. Also, we are seeing experimentation of self-driving shuttle service. This is now radically new, but we need to develop citywide service with those types of solutions. 2020 is a year where we have lots of tourists. And probably the number is around 40 million, according to the government. And we also have lots of VIPs in the city. So obviously the city needs to significantly upgrade the security level. And it's not just about adding the security guards. It is really about installing various technological solutions, including something like this. This is the one by NEC, and they have the cutting-edge face recognition technology, and they have installed this service in many airports and public spaces across the globe. A company like Secom, the security service company, has launched a service called Secom Drone, which is a facility surveillance service using the self-driving drones. And those drones will detect somebody suspicious and follow that person automatically and send alert loudly so that everybody can notice. The robot called K5, this is a product of American startup. And K5 is really like R2-D2, as you noticed. But it's self-driving security robots, basically driving through facilities and do the similar as a Secom drone. It has several cameras, sensors, not only visual and audio, but also odor and heat sensors. And also it tracks Twitter communications with a specific keyword about that facility or the name of the town. And if the robot detects something could be happening nearby, they go to that specific site and make checks and send alerts to the human security guard if something is going wrong. Marketing is also making significant advancements. Just to give one example, this is an example from Belgian beer Astra and interactive digital signage. You walk on the street and you see the digital signage, and the digital signage says, drink Astra with me. And if you are a woman above 20 or 30, he'll be happy. But if you are a guy, and then he'll say like this. So it's not really cutting edge. It's the combination of face recognition technology and customized video and message delivering service. But marketing can evolve in a creative way. And you already know that. Starting from Ingress, Pokemon Go made a big hit. And he's the governor of Tottori Prefecture, and he decided to make the Tottori Sand Dune into the place for Pokemon Go. So it's acting as an instrument to move people, to create inbound traffic, and create some additional economy by the use of smartphone games. So our question is really, what's next when we see lots of people coming to Tokyo and Japan in 2020? What type of experience we should give to them? To close the Tech City section, this is an ongoing project I'm personally supporting. Our aim is to develop so-called innovation campus by bringing world-leading company in this sector called Cambridge Innovation Center. Cambridge in Massachusetts, United States. So their headquarters is located right next to MIT Media Lab. And they are the biggest startup concentrator on the East Coast. And they have several startup hubs like this across the states as well as Rotterdam. And they decided to develop one in Tokyo about toward the end of 2019. And I'm supporting the project. So when we have the Tokyo Innovation Center, it's going to be like this. I can't disclose the specific location yet, but probably in 2 or 3 months from now, you should be seeing the press release. It's one of the premium locations in the center of the city. And the facility is going to be really large. It occupies ultimately probably 4 floors of new big high-rise buildings. So it's about 120 to 150,000 square meters. It includes co-working spaces, dedicated small offices, community places, and some type of shared labs. And it also hosts non-profit organization called Venture Cafe, which hosts weekly regular workshops and events, at least on each Thursday. And this Venture Cafe will launch their pilot activities in the end of March. So check it out. They'll have an event about toward the end of March on Thursday, for sure. And the CIC is really a cross-industry, cross-technology platform. So it hosts a variety of sectors, including healthcare, manufacturing, finance, retail. And it attracts startups with focus on robotics, drones, blockchain, VR, all kinds of technological innovations. Finally, I briefly spoke about regulatory changes or deregulation are needed to make them happen. Our team has been proactively working on several deregulation topics, and we won on 2 fronts. One is allowing or increasing immigration for creative professionals. The creative industries like food, fashion, or animation have significant hurdles for foreign creators and business producers. If you are not from well-known universities and have many years of experience at the foreign company of that particular expertise. So we have a lot of college students who learn animation or design in Japan, but some of them get a job and working visa, but not all of them. And we really like to relax the visa issuance for those professionals. And item number 2 is late night entertainment. the country has had a very notorious law called no dancing after midnight. Maybe you know that. So nightclubs which allow customers dance after midnight could have been arrested. Really bad law. And it existed until 2 years ago. And this team worked so hard to abolish basically that notorious law. And now, within a certain restrictions in terms of geographies, you can operate a legal nightclubs where people can dance throughout the night if they like. And it's not only about actually dancing clubs. It can be about entertainment restaurants. It can be about the use of museums after midnight. It can be about everything interesting in late nights. So we are setting up a consortium involving the government agencies as well as the private sector players to really develop a new nighttime economy for this country. And if you are interested, let us know, because again, here we need new flow of interesting ideas, as well as capital, as well as players who can really execute the real projects. So this is the book. If you are interested and you can read Japanese, please get one. Thank you. Well, not yet. Work in progress.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. So many familiar faces here tonight. Umezawa-san, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been such an inspirational presentation. I have a lot of questions.
Yes.
And I don't get the luxury of asking questions all the time. Many people in this room usually ask me questions. And I'm so excited that now it's my time. And one of the first questions I had in mind while listening through your inspirational presentation was, what can we do as individuals? We have heard so many things about what the city is going to be doing for the future. We've heard about the opportunities that are in the books. They are just about to be created. What can we do as individuals to best prepare ourselves? A lot of people in this room here tonight will be graduating from university. Many of them probably will be joining an organization. Some may consider a venture company. What would be your advice to everyone here tonight?
Well, if you have a particular idea about what you want to do by taking advantage of this unique opportunity, just go for it. The time is ripe. You should be able to get visa for sure. And you can get a co-working space if you like, as I explained earlier. You'll have lots of potential colleagues who may have left the country if it's 10 years ago, but now many people are hanging around and trying to do something interesting toward 2020 especially.
Thank you. With that in mind, I'm wondering now, as the city of Tokyo,
Right.
as the businesses of Tokyo, what do you think there is, again, to your mind, to your expertise? You consult a lot on global businesses around the world, and I'm
Right.
sure you do a lot of work on talent operations. And I'm curious, personally, to know what could we do to gauge the most of the creative talent we have in Japan? I see opportunities there. I see a lot of plans being laid ahead of us. Is that enough, you think, for the creative minds to pop up and raise up their hands and say, yes, let's get the creative juices started. Let's get innovation happening.
Well, I mean, frankly speaking, the whole presentation I made today, probably 20% we can control or we can drive, but 80% need to be driven by somebody else. So we are talking to many people who have some resources to make interesting things happen. And maybe you picked up one or two ideas from the presentation. If you did, it can be your project. And that's the kind of opportunities we are talking about. we can make many interesting things happen, especially between now and then. But we don't really have the sufficient number of business producers or entrepreneurs who can really drive them thoroughly. And, you can be one of those leaders.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just in line with that, entrepreneurship, right? Venture capitalism. We keep talking about these things, but I will tell you with confidence that a lot of people here in this room and outside this building as well, if they have a choice to work for an organization, big or small, rather than being an entrepreneur themselves, they would still choose the safer option of working for an enterprise. Am I wrong?
You?
How many people here really think of being an entrepreneur, a venture capitalist over the next 5 years? Wow, I'm very surprised. And I'm very proud as well. Thank you. What do you think, Umezawa-san, what do you think are the emotional barriers? What do you think are the necessary behaviors and attributes that people who are still not looking into venture capitalism, or not looking into startups, or not looking into being their own business owner, what do you think it really takes to develop that the mindset?
So your question is how can you acquire that mindset?
That mindset, exactly. How can we help people be more courageous about innovation? And not, again, only organizational innovation, but their own lifestyle innovation.
Well, I mean, you came to Japan several years ago, or maybe 10 years ago. And why did you choose Japan as a destination? It's not the most common choice if it's 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So you must be a risk taker in some fashion. And why don't you build on that? So I'm not so worried.
This really sounds like a GLOBIS class already.
Yeah?
I have plenty of questions, and going on with my questions, I think is going to take the whole week. I think this would be a good time to introduce some questions from the audience. I'm very, very curious to see what our participants here tonight.
And I'm curious too.
I bet you are. What we have felt, what we have observed, what is currently on our minds. This is not a good time to be shy. I would encourage everybody to open up and ask. Please.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You mentioned a need for entrepreneurs. And I'm curious if there is money available for people who just have ideas. Mm-hmm. And if so, where is it and how do we get it?
Well, if you have a great idea, probably you can talk to many people, including potential colleagues and potential investors. And if you get a team of supporters, just go for it. I mean, that's how it starts anywhere. No?
No, I understand that part, but not everybody has the connections to go out and develop,
Mm-hmm.
$1 million idea.
I mean, talk to Chris, talk to me, talk to Hori-san. Anybody you have access to. Yeah. And if Hori-san says it's exciting, let's go, then you get everything, right?
Yes.
Hi, I'm not a student here, so I don't know if I have the opportunity to talk to you a lot. But basically, I consider myself entrepreneur, and I have lots of ideas. I've been talking to many people, but just for some reason, I haven't really found that person. You know, the partner that actually have the same mindset, the same concept, the same personality. I don't know, something that doesn't. You know, it's very hard to find somebody who you can work with to make things happen. And also, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, who should I talk to? I mean, I've been joining many different conference, network, all this kind of thing. Just difficult. Especially in Japan, to find out somebody who can speak English, that's also one of the gap. How can I find more people? Or even like if I have an idea, I mean, I would like to have a company to sponsor. How could that? I mean, how can I make that happen?
Well, yeah, that's a reasonable question. In a way that if you don't speak Japanese, actually you have inherent barrier. And that's part of the reason why I'm so passionate about bringing Cambridge Innovation Center to Tokyo, because it's a global network and the CEO is a US guy, American guy. Lots of non-Japanese startups will be based there. So it will evolve into an ecosystem where people like yourself can mingle easily and communicate much more smoothly. Other than that, probably a place actually like this, GLOBIS English MBA, or several other EMBA courses are there. And typically those courses are like 70% non-Japanese. So you go to networking events hosted by those programs, you'll get to know many non-Japanese business people working here. That's one way. Maybe you should have a better advice.
I don't know if it's better or not, actually. I would strongly recommend actually looking around for governmental institutions as well, because there is actually a lot of governmental money available to startups.
Right.
There are a lot of public funds that can be easily Googled. And I'm sure, again, GLOBIS can help guide you towards some of the ongoing public programs. Unlike Silicon Valley, though, and I think back to the question, right? I think it's not easy to find angel investors, right? It's not easy to walk in the streets and say, hey, I have an idea. Anybody around in the room interested to bid in? Let's crowdfund it. Let's get the ball rolling. It doesn't work that easy, does it?
Well, if you are not talking about a really sizable amount of money, actually there are more and more angel investors in this country too. Yeah, because the IT bubble around 1999, many people actually made good money, and now probably over half of the then entrepreneurs are acting like angel investors. So it's just about getting to know the right kind of people. And if you want to launch a software-based startup, that should be enough. If you are really into deep tech, especially like robotics, and then story could be different. In that case, you really need to have strong venture capital who has a financial muscle. But we are becoming to see real serious venture capital in that domain too, like University of Tokyo Edge Capital. So opportunities are there. That's my message.
Umezawa-san, you just mentioned the upcoming connection between Tokyo and London. Mm-hmm. How do you see future connections like that coming up beyond London? Any other?
London?
Yes. Was it Cambridge that you mentioned?
No, Cambridge, Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Yes. Yeah. Cambridge, Massachusetts,
right.
Sorry. How do you see this whole collaboration evolving in the future?
As far as I can tell, the most important ones is the CIC and the RCA. That's based in London. RCA, University of Tokyo collaboration. The third project, we like to develop more concrete plan is about setting up a really high-level graduate school focused on food. Yeah, because this country has a very competitive culinary industry, but it doesn't have the world-class graduate school focused on culinary culture. So we should be, most likely we will be talking to one of the premium research or graduate schools outside of the country and jointly develop something which can act as a global hub for food industry professionals.
So what I'm hearing is already a cross-industrial, cross-academic, cross-functional type of network that is about to grow.
Yeah, I mean, we really need to develop new types of companies and new types of academic institutions or research labs. Just focusing on one country doesn't make sense. Just focusing on one expertise is probably not good enough to drive innovations. So mixing different expertise is very important. Mixing different ecosystems, or connecting different ecosystems is also very important. That's why, we like to have, we like to invite foreign institutions like RCA to Tokyo.
Thank you. This reminds me actually of a very interesting, relatively recent read I've had. You might be familiar with this book called Who's Your City by Richard Florida. And the book talks a lot about cities competing for creative talent around the world.
Right.
What used to be national intelligence in the past, now it's metropolitan intelligence, if you wish. And every major metropolis on planet Earth, be it European, be it North American, be it Asian, is screaming for creative talent.
Exactly.
What do you think, to your mind, what do you think Tokyo needs to do to attract creatives? Similarly to the way Silicon Valley has done, similar to the way Hong Kong has done, maybe, similar to the way Toronto has done.
Well, Tokyo has existing potential asset about being a very uniquely cultivated city with lots of interesting cultures or cultural clusters. So actually, people studying at RCA, the kind of designer type, have a much stronger tendency to like to come to Tokyo compared with the people who graduated from Stanford University in the West Coast. For the latter, probably it's going to be much easier to develop a really big mega venture and make tons of money in the West Coast, and Tokyo lags significantly. But if you love culture or you like to do something more creative, then Tokyo may be a place to go. And that's why RCA decided to come to Tokyo, basically. So I really like to leverage that existing relative advantage. And I have worked on a government-sponsored project called Cool Japan, which is really about developing creative industries for Japan. And because I think that way, I believe that the creative industries, in a broader meaning, has very interesting potential for the country. I'm not only talking about food or fashion or animation. I'm talking about using the creative talent to do something new. So that can be fintech, actually. That can be robotics. But just technology alone doesn't get there. You really have to use both technology and creative talent to make something really unique and attractive for your users. So this country has the potential to have both and mix them. That's my kind of main thesis as a business professional.
I already feel very tempted to start spending more time in Tokyo these days. I wonder whether anybody else from the audience has any other questions. Yes, please.
There was a massive boom in the 90s with regards to language training, and I'm wondering what your views are on how Tokyo plans to up its game in terms of language training for cross-cultural communications, as well as cross-communications training language aside, but also which industries are going to be requiring language services, and other than English, which other languages will be required?
Sorry, I didn't really get the question. Can you repeat it?
Which other languages, other than English, you think will be required in the future? Which are the industries, you think, that will be bringing more dynamism into the city?
Well, language-wise, probably, well, in terms of a business potential, it's clear Chinese, I guess. But it really depends on the sector. If it's about inbound tourism, actually it can be any major language, including Spanish, Portuguese, and only Chinese. If it is about techie industry, probably English is enough. If you want to do something with the German players, then learn German. But am I answering your question?
Yes.
What industry are you particularly interested in?
I have a language training business, so that's the angle I'm kind of coming from. Is
Trading?
Training business, kind of linguistics and interpreting. So I'm wondering which languages will have the biggest demand, and in which industries. German makes sense, I guess, in terms of the technology players. But I'm also wondering how Tokyo plans to up its game in terms of cross communications globally. Because technology is a very kind of advanced city in so many ways, but is still lagging in language communication overall. So how can Tokyo compete with this globally?
And I presume you're having Hong Kong in mind, or Singapore, or any one of the neighbors, even Shanghai these days, right?
Yeah.
You go to Shanghai, English is in the streets.
Right.
And even if not everyone is comfortable in opening up and maintaining a long philosophical conversation in English, you will probably get by with nearly everything. From asking the road to making bookings and arranging accommodation.
Well, maybe for ordinary people, just inbound tourists, actually it's getting easier and easier with applications like Google Translate. If it gets installed in all kinds of devices or your wearables as well, and maybe you plug a earphone, and then probably you don't need a translator any longer. But if you are a serious business user, the story is totally different. So in that case, my answer is it depends on the sector.
Well, speaking of the industries of the future, how about the work style of the future, Umezawa-san?
What style?
The work style.
Work style, yeah,
Yes.
it's got to change a lot, for sure.
How do you think that will happen?
Today, there is a report published on the internet about the transformation of the Japanese work style by a group led by Toyama-san and a few CEOs of largely startup companies. And they are talking about Japanese new way of work style. It's the combination of flexible labor market of the States and somewhat more conservative labor market of the Japanese. So it's kind of in between. But it is saying that Japanese companies really have to abolish the traditional seniority-based employment and a compensation system. Companies really need to educate the employees so that they have a more marketability. And companies really need to have a counseling service, real counseling service when they counsel out somebody. So that recommendation is available online, I think today or yesterday. And more and more entrepreneurs, for sure, and more and more executives at large corporations are coming to understand that thesis. So it's a matter of time, but we all need to raise our voice. Especially you guys will have a lot of disadvantages if you really go into a large company with a seniority-based human resource system, because you are not committed for the lifetime with one company. And increasingly, more and more young, talented people don't like that system either. So I think it's a matter of time, but the speed of change really depends on how many influential people raise their voice. So we need to do that.
Definitely. Speaking of voice raising, Umezawa-san, we talk about... Sorry. Was there a question?
Yes, I think so.
Carl.
So just related to that point, you're talking about the speed of change at the top of organizations. Well, this January, 1 person in 8 who turned 20 in Tokyo is not from Japan. It's a very big number. And this is very similar to the population, for example, of London, which has 8 million people and 1 million were born outside of the UK. So a very diverse city.
Right.
Tokyo is becoming very, very diverse and very quickly.
True.
So how quickly can companies change to catch up with that?
Frankly speaking, it really depends on the company. But the companies who are really slow to change or adapt to the new realities will lose competitiveness because they don't get the best talent. It is clear. So now if you ask what companies you like to work after graduation from college, if you ask that question at the University of Tokyo and the University of Kyoto, top 8, I believe, among the top 8, 5 or 6 were consulting firms, including my firm, and 2 were probably investment banks like Goldman Sachs. And no big Japanese corporations are on the top 8 list, even today. So companies like Toyota, Panasonic, Sony, all major companies, sooner or later realize that reality, and they are really competing for the best talent increasingly against companies like Google and Amazon, and of course consulting firms. So I think it's a matter of time, and they'll get there. Probably, I don't know. In the coming decade, for sure, probably the faster companies will get there in 3 to 5 years, I would guess.
Just before we go to that question, I was actually curious, Umezawa-san. Speaking of companies such as Toyota, Panasonic, Sony, yes, you were saying that transformation will come, and it is imminent. However, what do you think it really takes internally for those organizations, for the appetite for transformation, for innovation, for meaningful business change to really take place? These have been organizations that have grown, right, over this past 50 years, 70 years, 80 years, on one specific business model, on one way of doing business. And it's manufacturing based. It's just in time productivity. It is what comes in, goes out, and nothing too complicated or sophisticated in terms of diversity, in terms of talent operations, in terms of everything that doesn't fit. And probably with this, you see where I'm coming from with this question. How do you think these traditional organizations, or what do you think these traditional organizations will need in order for this internal, meaningful innovation to happen?
That transformation requires really strong top-down leadership, for sure. Yeah, because our chief human resource officer cannot make that decision. Only the CEO or COO can make that decision. So that's why I said it depends on the company.
And the leadership of that company as well.
Right, of course. But, you know, if you talk about Toyota, Toyota strongly recognizes the need for change. That's why they made a big investment in the States to establish the AI Research Center. And I believe it has a completely different human resource management system. And I'm pretty sure that they will import that system into Japan sooner or later. They have that intention, but they haven't decided yet. Talking about Sony, it requires the best of the best software capability for sure to be competitive in the global market. And to get the best software or AI researchers in the marketplace, they need to pay probably something like 3,000,000 yen for a young kid. And their current HR system allows that? No. So they need to have probably a different tier, or they need to have a complete overhaul of the system either way. And it will happen.
New tiers and organizational overhaul.
Right.
Very interesting. We had actually a question right at the back end that I think we can come forward. Is it still there? Sorry, please.
Sorry, this question is pretty specific to the Olympics and advertising. Mm-hmm. But in particular, like things like broadcasting rights and infrastructure are already spoken for. But in particular, sponsorship money, there's $2 billion of it. So it's very overfunded. And that was 5 years ago. And half of that's supposed to be value in kind, what's called value in kind sponsorship. So I'm just wondering which is supposed to be spent supposedly on domestic products and services. So I'm wondering if you see any specific business opportunities in that space.
Well, you said the sponsorship?
Yeah.
Sponsorship of what?
So sponsorship of the Olympics, the corporate sponsors.
Okay.
It's double, triple than previous Olympics. It was $2 billion, and that was 5 years ago. So it's even more. And then half of that is media buys, and then half of that is supposed to be spent on what's called value in kind sponsorships. Mm-hmm. Which means they should be sponsoring local services. So I'm wondering if you see any opportunities there.
Well, I don't know their spending plan to start with, so probably I'm not in a good position to answer that question. But what do you see as a potential opportunity in that domain?
I think it goes along with a lot of the services you talked about for tourists, for navigation services, and the fact to deal with the increasing tourism towards the Olympics. I think sponsors will want to put their logo on that, in some case, do video services. So I was wondering if...
I sit one subcommittee for the Olympic and Paralympic Organizing Committee to discuss the type of technologies we should be using during the period. And on that specific committee, we talk a lot about very basic stuff, which is free Wi-Fi in the stadiums. But it still requires a significant amount of money, and we are saying that we cannot equip the sufficient free Wi-Fi capability for all stadiums. So we really need to prioritize because we have many stadiums to fill. That topic only will consume a lot of money. On others, sorry, I don't really know. Sorry about that.
Edward, you're trying to ask a question?
Thank you, Umezawa-san, for your interesting presentation today.
Thank you.
I think I got what is the business goal of all this project, which is going to happen next 2 years. And my question to you is, so what is the ultimate goal for Tokyo by 2020 and after 2020? Is just to brand Tokyo as a good destination to visit, like for the tourists, for inbound tourism, or you actually want to be competitive with the cities such as New York, London, to be like international hub for people who are the best talents, who want to find a job here, who want to maybe start live in Tokyo, in order to be competitive. So I think I'm quite sure to have international competition. If you just said robotics or tech or food, that's something which Japanese people understand and people who want to come in Tokyo understand. But actually, marketing and how you brand Tokyo to attract the best talents should be very clear. So many people who ask me, Ed, how is it in Japan? I'm from Croatia. I always said it's brilliant. I always said very good thing about Japan, but they have an image that work-life balance not exists, diversity doesn't exist. So I think government and Tokyo, they need put a lot of effort to change that image to attract the best talents. Thank you.
Well, that's a fair statement. And to answer your first question, my answer is clearly the latter, which is evolving Tokyo into a truly attractive and competitive city for many segments, including, of course, manufacturing and creative industries, but also for other tech-based industries. And we like to have more and more high-caliber, talented people from any country. We need them. We need you.
It's going to be a cumulative effort. It's going to be everyone, not just the government, not just those in charge of promotions, but actually each and every one of us living in Japan as well. I saw more questions. Yes, Anurang?
Thank you, Umezawa-san.
Thank you.
I'm really happy that you're trying to be a guiding light and trying to change the startup scene in Tokyo. My question is, what are the legal hurdles and procedural hurdles if I want to open a Kabushiki Kaisha in the future, and how to deal with that?
If you want to set up your own business, right? How easy is that to do in Tokyo today as a non-Japanese resident?
As a non-Japanese, yes.
Okay.
Are you studying at the GLOBIS? Well, in that case, at least you should have likely 1 year allowance.
Student visa.
Yeah, before you launch your company. So if it's not a really difficult challenge, probably you should be able to do that, I guess. And after working as a company founder for 1 year, I think you should be eligible for permanent residency. The government implemented a policy to allow permanent residency for high caliber foreign people after 1 year, which is the shortest in the world, actually. How many of you have known that? Oh, it's a lack of PR, as you mentioned earlier. It is the shortest in the world. So it's changing quite significantly.
I'm sorry for being selfish. Can you choose people those kind of people?
Can we introduce you to those kind of people who
Yes.
can give you advice
Yes.
on how to set up a company?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll look around. I'm sure we know some.
Thank you.
Just to build on the explanation, to set up a company in Japan, you don't need to have a working visa, okay? All you need to do is have 10 yen, put it into a corporate account and set up your own company. I set up my own company 16 years ago, and it was a matter of paperwork. It took less than half a day. So setting it up is not difficult. Working there is the other question, okay? In order to be able to work for that company, you need to have a working permit. In order to be able to receive a working permit as a self-sponsored organization, you need to hire 2 locals. And locals doesn't mean a necessarily Japanese citizen. It means anybody who has right of work in Japan. And we'll continue this conversation after the seminar. It's not that difficult at all.
Thank you. You know everything.
Not really, but I've been through the same process a couple of times before. So
For sure.
we can share some of the experiences. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Umezawa-san.
Thank you.
I think you talked about attracting the best talent to Tokyo, right? But what do you advise the young Japanese children to experience or do so that they can contribute to Tokyo in the future to make it more a better city? The question where I'm coming from is that when I was working in Hong Kong 10 years ago, I think a lot of talented people studied abroad, like in the US or UK. And they came back to Hong Kong to contribute for their country. But a lot of the Japanese children don't want to go abroad these days. And, you know, what could we do so that they could change their mindset?
Are you having that problem?
I have a 3-year-old.
Oh, 3 years.
Yeah.
So, well,
Right.
right. Well, if I don't know, I don't have kids myself, so I don't really have great insightful advice for you. But if you keep getting him or her the right kind of stimulus over time, I think is she or he? She. I think sometimes someday she'll have idea of going abroad at least once and see what the world looks like and encourage her in that direction.
But one girl is not enough.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, if all of us do the same, it's going to be some significant number. And I'm not that pessimistic because I'm seeing more and more young college graduates are becoming really serious about their career and really serious about becoming a global citizen. So at least the cream of the population is evolving in that way. And if you raise your daughter in the right way, I believe that she'll be like that too. So no worry.
Sadam, I saw your hand. Just 1 second. Just to build up on this question, now from a wider spectrum, we keep talking about innovation. We keep talking about creativity. Yet at the same time, the Japanese government, the Ministry of Education, has recently decided to cut funding for humanities, for liberal arts. Really? And this is probably something that has not only been in the news, but it has been quite frequently discussed recently.
Are you talking about the higher education?
Yes, the higher education. Cutting again funds for liberal arts in universities.
Right.
And I was wondering again personally, what is your view on that?
Well, the higher education system really needs to be revamped anyway. This country, well, it's been like that in other countries too, but this country's system has basically engineering schools, liberal arts colleges, and art schools completely separated. But what we really need to develop a successful, exciting business, we need all those. So we call it the kind of BTC type, business, technology, and creative. And we are saying that we need to have the BTC capabilities set at the top of any company, whether it's manufacturing or service. And in many cases, the Japanese successful manufacturers have been driven by business and technology people, but not creative types. Companies like Dentsu are dominated by creative types and business types, but not technology people. So those companies lack the right set. But if you think about a company like Apple, they have everything. And that's how we get to the level of success in the global market.
Integration of skills, right?
Right, integration of skills. So integration of engineering universities and liberal arts expertise and art and design in one place. That's what we really need. That is why, well, I sit on the board of GLOBIS, and I urged GLOBIS to form alliance with the company university called the Digital Hollywood University. Digital Hollywood is like variation of MIT Media Lab of a Japanese version. So they really focus on technology and creative together. And you know, GLOBIS is really strong on business and now getting into the technology domain, but it lacks the kind of creative side. And that's what you are developing a new course, I guess.
Absolutely.
And that is why I thought that the combination of GLOBIS and Digital Hollywood makes the perfect sense to fill the gap and create the BTC set. But that's something which should be happening in any high caliber universities, including Todai and Kyodai.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And those types of collaborations, again, are not, as you're saying, it's probably not just GLOBIS University or Digital Hollywood. It's the whole academic network.
Right, exactly.
That is evolving into a collaborative ecosystem.
Right.
Rather than singular type of research institute.
Right. And the RCA University of Tokyo collaboration I explained earlier is really about connecting technology and creative. And with that strong link, we can see much more innovation, interesting innovations. So that types of intersections or interactions need to occur at universities and at companies.
Thank you very much. Sadam, you had a question?
Thank you. I have a question regarding your urban development you earlier touched upon. So my question is the urban development versus the aging population. So how scared are the developers of this aging population?
How scared?
Are they scared or are they not scared? Or is this urban development being built upon the image that Japan will be having more immigrants? And that's why all these developments are focusing in Japan. And if so, will Japan eventually lose its competitive edge of Japanese service? Because as the population ages, so Japan is popular for its culture and its service, Japanese services. Will this eventually have a change in 50 years or in the coming?
You're asking about the quality of service?
Quality of the service and the urban development that is happening. Is this focused on immigrants or is this focused on the Japanese population will have a change of mindset?
Well, most of the major property developers talk about foreign companies as a potential tenant, and in some cases, foreign executives as potential customers for their residential properties. So they are talking about it. How serious they are, it really depends on the project. So one particular project we supported and my Kearney team supported, the concept was really about creating a special economic zone for foreign companies in one part of Tokyo. That particular project was really serious, but on others, maybe not so serious. Talking about the service industry, are you talking about the quality of service industries or inefficiency of the service industry?
At the moment, the service industry in Japan is world-renowned, like they say, it's number one, and nobody can compete.
Oh, really?
But if it goes around the aging population, will Japan be able to continue to retain its position?
Well, probably you are overestimating the Japanese service industry, I guess, but the quality is great in many cases, especially if you are talking about hospitality for a certain segment. And as the population ages, well, probably the answer is yes, because the senior people will have a more delicate service in many cases. And probably the Japanese service providers will evolve to be able to deal with that new challenge. So probably the answer is yes. But at the same time, we have to face with the reality that the Japanese service industry has a significant productivity gap in terms of GDP per labor or GDP per labor hour compared with other countries. And without increasing the productivity or filling the productivity gap, the companies cannot really raise their salary. Therefore, probably they cannot really upgrade their services to deal with new segments, including affluent people from countries like China or Europe.
We have time for exactly 2 more questions. 2 more questions. Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. So I would like to ask the 2020 itself in the more detail. So as a committee of a member of 2020, so I'd like to ask now, what is the meaning 2020 for Japan? Because in the so I believe in the Barcelona Olympic is one of the biggest success. Because after the Barcelona Olympic is visiting the people, is more than double. This is a very significant, I believe. So I really think Japanese government is more focused on is visiting repeat after Tokyo Olympic.
You mean the Tokyo Olympic from 1964?
No? 2020.
2020? Okay.
Yeah, it's because in the many overseas people is visiting Tokyo at the 2020 at first time. So it's the Japanese government more focus on repeating after the Tokyo Olympic. How to repeat in the visiting to Tokyo.
So how to increase repeat customers for Tokyo or Japan after 2020?
Yes.
That's your question?
Yes, it's my question.
So it is, well, first of all, it's more important to make sure that Tokyo or Japan will be prosperous after 2020 than having a successful Olympic Games period, right? It's clear. So to realize the success after 2020, it is clear, it is obvious that we need to make sure that the visitors have great experience upon their first visit. And this country is ready? Not yet. That's why we are working so hard, or many people are working so hard to get ready. But it is not about having a successful games. It is really about making the right investments so that this country has a sustainable, growing future. Am I answering your question? And I'm also participating in one of the government committees for inbound tourism because it's highly related to the urban development, highly related to creative industry development. And it is becoming very clear that we are seeing more and more actually repeat customers already. So the largest segment is Chinese, but many of the Chinese tourists are actually the second time or third time tourists, not the first time. The first timer buys a lot of goods in Akihabara or Shinjuku. But the second time or third time repeat customers like to go deeper, much deeper, and have interesting experience as opposed to just buying goods. And to provide a wealth of interesting customer experience for them, we really need to upgrade the level of service across the country while making sure they have fun at night as well, and making sure that they have less stress when they make arrangement for the transportation. When they stay at a hotel, maybe the second time or third timer like to have different kinds of accommodation than the usual business hotel. So we've got to do a lot of things, but we are getting there.
Sounds like we have a lot of work to do. We'll be very busy. There was a question, right? Yes, at the end.
Hi, thank you, Umezawa-san. I actually have two questions. First, I got fascinated by the intelligence security, and I was wondering if you, because I know in Europe there's a bit more of a debate about privacy and how this is the luxury of the future, and I was wondering if people will be informed about how people will be detected, and especially also about advertising, like will people have a choice to be recognized, especially in a city where it's so visual and where, I don't know, maybe not everybody wants to be put in a box of man or female or like, I don't know. I'm wondering, like, will people have a choice? Will they be informed? And is there actually a debate about this privacy or how they're going to protect the, yeah, everything?
Well, you may be right. Japanese people are also really sensitive about or maybe too sensitive about the privacy issue. So I'm pretty sure that some of the Japanese people will hate to be detected that way. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Whether companies will still try to do that, probably really depends on the company. Some companies don't really care because they focus on certain segments. But the companies like, I don't know, Toyota or Panasonic, who like to be liked by everybody, will stay away from that kind of risk. In terms of, well, in terms of marketing, probably that's going to be the reality. In terms of the security enhancement, it's inevitable. So whether you like it or not, it's going to be there. It's less intrusive than China, but still, it's going to be there.
Sure.
Also, about the new investments with new buildings and all the tech, I was wondering if there's also money being invested in the maintenance of more old and smaller buildings and owners, because there's, especially also around Tsukiji, there's a lot of old and characteristics that might be also worth investing. Is there money for that? Is there also being invested in that?
Well, we are seeing more and more money actually getting into that segment. Meaning that lots of renovation and conversion projects going on. And my team is also passionate about making interesting work by using conversion and renovation techniques because creative people like that way. They don't like high-rise flashy buildings. So we need to attract those people as well. And you know, having variety of old buildings can be an asset because we have lots to work on that way.
Umezawa-san, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This has been a very inspirational discussion.
Wow.
I'm sure that our friends here tonight will want to hear more from you. I imagine there are many more hints to be taken from the book. If you were to have one last comment to everyone here tonight, to all the students coming to GLOBIS and graduating from GLOBIS, what would be your words of encouragement?
Well, actually, I repeat the same message as the first one. If you have some interesting idea or you have passion for something here in Tokyo or Japan, just go for it. Please go for it. I should phrase that way. Yeah, because we need more and more people with passion, aspiration, exciting ideas, and action-oriented people. We need more of those. And we need more and more non-traditional, conventional people, like the usual salary people at the large Japanese corporations. And that is you. So I expect that way.
Enjoy the ride. Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank you.